Trust God to take care of you. You know, life has a funny way of teaching us things we didn't sign up for. Ever been in a moment where you said, I've done all I can, now what? That's usually the moment we start learning what trust really means. I want to share a thought with you today, and I hope it sticks. Trust God to take care of you, not just when it's easy, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it isn't. See, there are moments in life when effort alone isn't enough, discipline is good, planning is smart, hustle is necessary, but even after you've read the books, made the calls, worked the hours, there comes a point when you have to hand over the outcome. Now, don't misunderstand. Trusting God is not an excuse to get lazy. That's not trust. That's negligence. Trust means I'm going to do everything I can and believe that what I can't do, He will. That's partnership. I learned this from watching nature. Take a farmer. He tills the soil, plants the seeds, waters the field. He does his part, but does he make the seed grow? No, that's not in his hands. He trusts that what he planted with the right care will bear fruit. That's how life works. You show up, do the work, and then trust that the process has a power bigger than you. And sometimes, the rain doesn't come when you expect. That's where people panic. It's not working. Why isn't it happening yet? But trust says, hold on. Storms may delay harvest, but they don't cancel it. I remember a time I was down to my last dollar and last ounce of belief. The business wasn't working. People stopped calling back. Nothing made sense. But I still showed up suit and tie, smile and all. Why? Because I knew something. What I didn't see working didn't mean nothing was working. And sure enough, the tide turned. Why? Because I didn't let go of trust. I didn't give up on the process. And I didn't give up on the one who created the process. See, here's the deal. Trust is quiet confidence. It doesn't shout, it doesn't demand. It just stands firm, faithful, focused. Some people say, but Jim, what if I'm scared? You're not alone. Trusting doesn't mean you never feel fear. It just means you don't bow to it. You walk on even with shaky legs, knowing that you're being carried even as you walk. That's why I tell folks, build your life on faith. Put discipline on one shoulder and trust on the other. You need both. One helps you move, the other helps you breathe. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, remind yourself, I've done my part. Now I trust God to take care of me. You'll be amazed what happens when you trust not just the plan, but the planner. Faith is strength, not surrender. This is not just a statement of belief. It's a mindset, a way of navigating life, and a source of real inner power. Most people misunderstand faith as passive. They think faith means stepping back, folding their arms, and waiting for things to happen. But real faith is the exact opposite. Faith is not a retreat. Faith is a fire that fuels forward motion. It's the invisible force that makes people stand when others fall. It's the choice to move ahead when nothing makes sense and everything screams stop. Faith doesn't tell you to run from life's battles. It arms you to fight them. When things go wrong, it's easy to believe you're supposed to give up, back down, or stay quiet. Faith doesn't accept that. Faith says, stand your ground. It tells you that even in the darkest valley, you still have light in your soul. Faith is what lets people believe in a better tomorrow even when today is broken. It's what keeps people getting up off the mat after being knocked down again and again. That's not weakness. That's strength in its rawest form. That's what keeps dreamers alive in a world that often tries to crush hope. The power of faith lies in its ability to keep a person centered. When everything on the outside is falling apart, faith holds together what's on the inside. Life is full of uncertainty. Jobs come and go. Relationships shift. Health can fail. Opportunities can vanish. If your strength is built only on the visible, then the moment the visible is shaken, so are you. But when your strength comes from faith, when it's rooted in something deeper, then no matter what changes around you, you remain grounded. Many people confuse faith with blind acceptance, but real faith asks for clarity, discipline, and commitment. It doesn't ask you to stop thinking. It asks you to think beyond your limits. It asks you to trust even when you can't trace every outcome. That kind of faith is not easy. It's a choice, a daily decision. You decide to believe there's something greater than the chaos. You decide to believe your life has purpose even when your path feels unclear. You decide to keep going when everything around you is screaming to quit. That is not surrender, that is strength. Surrender says, I can't do this anymore. Faith says, I will walk on. even if I have to crawl. Surrender is quitting before the battle is over. Faith is staying in the fight, even with scars, even with losses, even with doubts screaming in your ear. Faith doesn't guarantee a smooth ride, but it gives you the strength to travel the road with dignity, with courage, and with heart. When a person trusts something higher, they are not weak. In fact, that trust becomes the core of their confidence, because they know that even if they don't control the outcome, they are not alone. That's the beautiful paradox. Faith allows you to release control while still stepping into your power. You let go of fear, but you hold on to hope. You stop fighting everything you can't change, and instead focus all your energy on what you can. Strength is not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet resilience. Sometimes it's the ability to smile in struggle, to show kindness in crisis, to be generous even when you don't have much. Faith gives you the strength to respond to life with grace. When things go wrong, faith keeps you from becoming bitter. It teaches you how to bend without breaking. It makes your heart strong enough to carry disappointment without losing joy. People with strong faith walk differently. They carry an invisible confidence, not because they have all the answers, but because they trust the one who does. That kind of strength doesn't need to shout. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply lives, breathes, and leads with peace. There's a kind of wisdom that faith brings. It teaches you that everything has a season. You begin to understand that storms don't last forever, that pain, as real as it is, will eventually pass, that tears are part of the journey, but so is healing. Faith lets you trust in timing you don't always understand. It gives you patience when you want speed. It gives you endurance when you feel like stopping. Faith is strength because it frees you from the burden of needing all the facts before taking action. It lets you dream big without needing the full blueprint. It lets you walk toward the unknown without fear of failure, not because failure won't happen, but because you know you'll grow from it. You know that even in defeat, there's development. Even in loss, there's learning. Faith teaches you to see value in the process, not just the prize. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet are not the loudest, not the richest, not the most popular. They're the ones who have been through the fire and chose not to become the fire. They've lost things, suffered things, been rejected, been betrayed, but they still love, still believe, still try again. That's faith in action. That's strength that doesn't need applause to exist. There is something deeply courageous about continuing to believe in good when life gives you every reason not to. It's a quiet act of rebellion against despair. It's a way of saying, I won't let darkness have the final word. That's strength, because anyone can believe when life is perfect. But when everything falls apart and you still choose to believe, that's the kind of faith that can move mountains. Faith allows you to get out of bed when grief weighs down your bones. Faith gives you the power to start over after loss, to rebuild after devastation, to forgive after betrayal. Those aren't acts of surrender. They are acts of deep, relentless strength. When a person walks by faith, they walk with vision. They see things before they happen. They carry hope in barren places. They speak life into empty spaces. They create momentum by simply believing. That belief infects others. It inspires. It changes atmospheres. Faith is a force, and it's contagious. Faith doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's a whisper in your own heart that says, keep going. Sometimes it's just the decision to be grateful in hard times. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to speak kindly, to stay gentle, to keep loving when it hurts. Faith is the internal strength that fuels those choices. Strength is often measured by external power, muscles, speed, influence, wealth. But true strength is internal. It's measured in restraint, in patience, in the ability to keep your values when others drop theirs. Faith fortifies that internal strength. It keeps your character intact when circumstances try to compromise it. So when you hear the phrase, faith is strength, not surrender, understand that this isn't poetic fluff. It's a reality that plays out in the lives of people who choose belief over bitterness, who choose to stand firm when everything else shakes, who choose to keep walking through the valley because they know the mountaintop is real. Faith won't take away every obstacle, but it will give you the strength to climb. Faith won't make you immune to pain, but it will give you the strength to heal. Faith won't hand you everything you want, but it will build in you everything you need. So don't think that trusting in something bigger than yourself makes you weak. It makes you wise. It makes you strong. It gives you vision when the world gives you fear. It gives you endurance when the road gets hard. And most of all, it gives you peace that circumstances can't steal. That is the strength of faith. Let go of the how, focus on the what. This is more than just a phrase. It's a shift in perspective, a fundamental reorientation of how you pursue goals, dreams, and growth in life. It's easy to get caught in the trap of needing to know every single step, every twist, every solution before we begin. But the truth is, most of the time, the path doesn't reveal itself until after we commit to the destination. The how is often hidden until the what is firmly planted in your heart. Life doesn't hand out roadmaps. It offers intentions, opportunities, lessons, and motion. The most successful people in the world didn't get there because they had every answer. They got there because they had a clear picture of what they wanted, and they started moving. The how unfolded as they walked. That's the key. As they walked, not before, not while waiting for certainty, but in motion, in decision, in effort. The what is your vision, your mission, your burning desire. It's the thing that stirs your soul. It's the business you want to build, the character you want to develop, the impact you want to make. That what must come from deep within. It's not borrowed, not copied, not based on someone else's applause. It's yours. That is the starting point. But then comes the mind's trap. How will I do this? How will it work? How will I find the resources? How will people respond? The problem with those questions is not that they are wrong, but that they are asked too soon. When you lead with how, you paralyze yourself with fear, doubt, and overanalysis. The how tends to overwhelm you before you even begin. And when you're overwhelmed, you lose momentum. You sit still, you wait, you stall. Great things are rarely done by people who knew exactly how to do them from the beginning. Great things are done by people who knew what they wanted and trusted that the rest would come. They trusted the process, they stayed open, they took steps, they asked for help, they made mistakes, and they adjusted. But they didn't sit around waiting for a perfect step-by-step plan. Focusing on the what sharpens your clarity. It gives your energy direction. It pulls your resources into alignment. Your thoughts begin to shape around what matters. Your time begins to bend toward your goal. Your habits start reflecting your desire. The more defined your what becomes, the more you begin to attract the right ideas, people, and opportunities. That's not magic, it's mindset. The mind, when fixed on a goal, becomes a magnet for solutions. Letting go of the how also teaches humility. It reminds you that you're not in control of every variable. It forces you to acknowledge that there are forces, timings, and doors that open beyond your understanding. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. You begin to accept that the journey is more about faith than formula. You stop obsessing over control and begin walking with trust. That trust is what keeps you moving even when results are delayed. When you focus too much on how, you're trying to predict the unpredictable. You're trying to solve problems that haven't even arrived yet. That kind of thinking exhausts you. It drains your joy. It makes you forget why you started in the first place. But when you focus on the what, your passion stays alive. You're fueled by vision, not fear. You're pulled forward, not dragged by doubt. The irony is that the how does show up, but only after commitment. It shows up when you invest time, when you show up consistently, when you try, fail, tweak, and grow. Every action teaches you something. Every step opens a new one. Every small win builds confidence. That's how momentum works. The more you walk, the more the road unfolds, but the road only reveals itself to the moving feet. People often say, "I'll get started once I figure out how," but that day never comes. Because how is a moving target. It's not a pre-existing formula. It's a discovery process. The right question is, what do I really want? What does my future look like? What would make my life meaningful? Once that is clear, the next step, just the next step, becomes enough. Don't wait for all the steps. Just start with the next one. Let your faith handle the rest. That's how mountains are climbed, one step at a time. Nobody needs to see the top to begin the climb. They just need to see the next handhold, the next foothold. That's how progress is made, in simple, committed action. Letting go of the how doesn't mean you don't plan. It doesn't mean you stop being strategic. It means you don't let the unknowns paralyze you. You keep the vision clear, and you stay flexible with the method. Sometimes the how you imagined isn't the how that works, and that's okay. When you're focused on the what, you're able to adjust without losing direction. You can bend without breaking, and when things don't work out, you don't panic, because your faith isn't built on knowing how, it's built on knowing why. That purpose keeps you grounded. It reminds you that your journey has meaning. It reminds you that every detour still teaches, every delay still builds you, every challenge still shapes you. You begin to understand that the journey is the how. The people you meet, the things you learn, the resilience you build. That's all part of the unfolding how. And that is often more valuable than the result itself, because the person you become on the way is the real reward. Letting go of the how is freedom. It frees you to dream big without limitation. It frees you to act without perfection. It frees you to grow without pressure. And most of all, it frees you to trust that life works best when you partner with possibility, not just logic. So hold your what close, let it be bold, let it be personal. Let it be clear, then release the how, let life meet you halfway, let action shape the path, let trust do what control cannot. Because once the what is in motion, the how will find its way, it always does.